we can be the microbiome, we can be the soil food web. And, maybe we don't need this narrative of bigger, better, faster, stronger, let's all escape and fly to Mars, because everything we need.
All right, welcome to another episode of Grow Your Grass Off. We have a fantastic musician today. His name is Charlie. If you haven't seen it before, it's amazing. Formidable Vegetable, right, is basically what you got to look up on YouTube or whatever. Find it and take that journey. I have. It's been fun. I really enjoy it. He has a fantastic TED Talk as well. That comes up on YouTube. But Charlie, it seems he's got a great background. We're going to dive right in. Charlie, thanks for being here.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Charlie.
So one question off the top would be kind of what's your background? Because in the TED Talk, you reveal a little bit in terms of maybe you've got some Aboriginal influence where you grew up, maybe in the backwoods, and kind of how that impacted you and your approach to life and shaped who you are today. And then after that, if you can discuss maybe kind of the music side, when did that start flowing from you and how did that sort of begin, in that journey?
Yeah, well, both my parents are musicians, so I guess I had that. And my mum was actually from the States. She grew up in Seattle and then moved to San Francisco in her 20s and left in the 80s when Reagan got elected. So she was like, I'm out of here and I want to go and move to Australia and live with these people who seem to know how to live in the bush. And so she moved to an Indigenous community in the center of Australia and started working in the medical center there, and then met my dad. And by the time I came along, they were fully, they'd been living in remote communities for about 5 or 6 years. And, dad was a teacher in the school. And so I kind of grew up just with the local kids, in these remote communities in sort of the really sort of First Nations area of Australia called Arnhem Land, which is, at the time you needed a permit to go there if you weren't a part of the community. But obviously, like, I was just born there, and so I kind of hung out with everyone and had family. Like they have kinship systems there, and I was just accepted as like part of the family. So I grew up, learning the languages and just hanging with the kids and kind of just absorbing that kind of culture. And music was everywhere. People would be singing at ceremony, and there'd be like songmen singing across the road at nighttime, and it was just a real integrated part of the culture up there. And I moved south. We moved to a small town sort of in the south, more white part, I guess, of Australia when I was about 4. And by then I was very much like a bush kid, but I never sort of lost that. I never lost that connection, even though I haven't been back. So I lost that physical connection. But when I studied permaculture, like many years later, they were talking about traditional ways of learning and knowing through the arts and through music. And I just had this kind of like epiphany moment. I was like, hang on a minute, like that's kind of like what people used to do when I was a kid. And I wonder if I could use those techniques to remember this stuff that I'm learning. So after a random connection, making this random connection, I started writing songs about permaculture principles, mainly just for my own memory. And lo and behold, it worked. And then a bunch of people asked me to record them, and then that's where the band came from. So it's a bit of a different band, you could say, a bit of a concept.
I think it's fantastic. Super creative.
Yeah, very creative. You've got a lot of music videos. What inspires you to pick certain types of vegetables to talk about, I guess? Like your kimchi, what inspired that?
Oh, well, I mean, anyone who's ever tried kimchi would just be like, of course, there's a song in that. I mean, come on, like, it just sings in your mouth. Like, how could you not write a song about kimchi? No, I just like kind of coming up with silly ditties and lyrics about, stuff that I'm into. And, kimchi is one of them. But a few years ago, after the first album, which was based on the 12 principles of permaculture, it was very much like an experiment in educational music, I guess you could call it. But I was like, well, who's this for? Who's going to listen to this? And of course, people studying permaculture or who are into gardening or, reforesting or ecology were like, wow, this is great. And strangely, I got launched onto the International Dance Music Festival circuit after a freak accident. of playing at one in Australia. And then I thought, well, hang on, like this stuff could be really great for kids. So I started just writing silly lyrics about cool stuff, you know, about fermented foods and about gardening, but in language that kids could understand. And also because we already had the adult dance music scene kind of getting into our stuff, I kept the electronic beats and the full, you know, band with trumpets and violins and trombones and everything as a way for the adults or parents to still stay into it. And then of course, after a few years, a lot of the party goers who would come to see us grew up and had kids. And so we're like, great, we've got the next generation to think about. So yeah, some of those later songs that we've written have been kid focused on the outside, but with a deeper meaning underneath. So yeah, it's a way for everyone to get involved.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was listening to your recent album. So tell us a little bit about that and tour and all that stuff coming up. I think you have a tour coming up in Australia, or you're already in it. Just highlight that a little bit for us.
Yeah, so the new one's called Microbiome, and I don't know. Over the years, I've been nerding out more on like soil biology and gut flora and just microbes. Man, microbes are so cool. I read that book, Teeming with Microbes, recently, written by a couple of guys from Alaska, I think. But it's fascinating. It's very much like a soil science, you know, going into the soil food web and how you can apply that in your garden and for growing food. But it's written in a way that just sort of reads like a Hollywood drama. I mean, there's all these characters living in the soil, and they've all got these different lives, and these, you know, they're all eating each other and just like having these dramas. I was like, wow, that's an album, you know, that's more than an album. But I'm going to start with some songs about microbes. So I started out writing with my partner Brenner, actually, who's a permaculture teacher as well. We wrote this song about the soil food web. It's a bit of a rap, and sent it to Elaine Ingham, who's a famous soil scientist over there, and she loved it. She's like, we need a soil food web album. So, you know, who knows, that might be on the cards. But as it emerged, you know, I just started thinking like it's a great metaphor, you know, the microbial, the micro world, you know, the microbiome that's inside all of us and outside all of us. You know, it's in the soil, it's in the plants, it's in animals, it's everywhere. It's in the air that we breathe. It's quite the metaphor for the small, appreciating the small things that do all the work. And in the last few years, I guess a lot of people have realized, and, you know, myself included, that you know, the world is a self-organizing system for the most part. And we're given this narrative that, you know, successful businessmen or rich guys with rocket ships kind of run the show and they're going to save the day and, you know, have the solutions for saving the world. And we all must be heroes and aspire to them and make as much money as we can. But, you know, when you look at the microbial world, it's like, you know, they're doing the smallest thing. They're just doing like at the nano scale. They're just like eating some stuff and then, you know, killing each other and then turning into humus and then helping grow a plant. And that, like, but trillions of times over. And that creates a movement, you know, literally, like the soil is seething with life. And then that creates life itself. And so, yeah, just I wanted to kind of make that link, you know, between all the small people and entities and things happening on the ground, you know, all the gardeners, all the farmers, all of the health workers, all the food growers, all of the teachers who are just doing their thing and maybe feeling like, oh, what am I doing in the world? You know, I'm just one person. But to give that sense that, you know, if we replicate those actions in a kind of coordinated way, you know, we can be the microbiome, we can be the soil food web. And, you know, maybe we don't need this narrative of bigger, better, faster, stronger, let's all escape and fly to Mars, because everything we need is right here in the soil and in our bodies. So, yeah, there was a little bit of that thread woven through, but, you know, obviously that's a lot to communicate to kids. So we just sort of focused on some fun songs about nematodes and amoebas and flagellates and things like that.
Oh, that's well said. Well put. Yeah, definitely agree. And one thing I could piggyback off of that a little bit would be kind of our mission at GYGO is to just really support people in that journey for growing food So I can imagine what you might say to this, but I'll ask anyway. But what would you say from your perspective is so important for living a vibrant life in today's world? You know, for us, I feel like taking that step to, like you said, treating soil better than dirt, right? It's kind of a slogan, is we've got to really take care of the soil and to me, grow your food. So it's everything. But can you speak on that a little bit? Because we want people to get in there, make mistakes, figure it out, have support and community, and take those little steps, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say, you know, you always hear when you talk to people about this, oh, I haven't got the time. I'd love to be doing this, but you know, there's too much on my plate. And yeah, like I get it, you know, people are stretched and there's, you know, a lot going on in the world and people don't have the mental capacity. But I would just say, you know, for your own therapy, like just do one thing, just connect, just grow something in a pot. Like if it's a bit of basil or a bit of arugula or something, like just anything, you know, start making those steps to connecting in your own life. You know, one of the best bits of advice that I got when I was doing my permaculture design course, which if anyone's ever done a permaculture design course, it's a pretty full-on brain dump. You know, you kind of come out feeling like SpongeBob, you know, just like full of, like you just want to squeeze yourself out. And but after the second or third day, I think I was just like hearing about all the evidence to act, you know, all the things going on in the world that we need to do something about. And I was just overwhelmed. I'm like, man, get me off. Like I want off. Someone stop the planet. Like this is too much. And I was just kind of, I was going through this thing that a lot of people get, which is like, what can I do? Like, I'm just one person. What can I do? You know, just me, the individual, and really thinking not outside of that. And my housemate came up and she gave me this beautiful quote by Howard Thurman, who I think was actually a tennis player. No, I'm thinking of someone else. But anyway, it was that don't ask yourself, what can I do? Ask, what makes me come alive? Because what the world needs is people who've come alive. And that stuck with me. And that's actually soon after, that's when I started writing songs, because I was a musician before getting into gardening and permaculture and everything else. And I thought, well, all right, I'll just play music then. But then I had this new knowledge of you know, these principles and ethics. I was like, well, maybe I'll play music about that, and maybe that'll maybe come alive. And it did. And so now I've got this just blessed situation where I can do what I love for a living and do some good in the world and feel sort of aligned, I guess, in that journey, which is really hard to do, but it is possible. And so yeah, I'll just say just the one thing that you can do that makes you come alive, that connects to the earth or to community or anything like that, you know, just start doing it and you'd be surprised. It kind of has a roll-on effect after a while.
So true.
Awesome.
Do you feel like your music has only taken a focus to permaculture, or do you have any other albums that are not associated with just growing food and soil and everything such as that?
I didn't start writing songs until I did a permaculture design course, strangely. Like, I never really took that leap to actually writing lyrics and coming up with songs. And I always had this thing in the back of my mind, like, oh, what's music ever done for the world? Like, it's just, you know, hedonistic fun. Like, who am I to be playing music for fun? You know, and it's never going to change anything. But so after I did my permaculture course, permaculture isn't so much about gardening. It's a whole design framework. And it's about seeing things holistically. And it's based on the ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share. And then a bunch of principles from there, which I guess acted as the bedrock of what I do now. So it was great, actually, that I didn't start writing songs until I'd studied permaculture, because everything that I do now is informed by those ethics: earth care, people care, fair share. And that can be about anything. You know, I can write about building a house and it still can come back to that. And for me, that gives the holistic context around what the band does. So I guess you could say that all of our songs are about permaculture, but then they're about all kinds of things as well. But I guess that's our purpose. It's making art with purpose. And my partner, Brenna Quinlan, is an illustrator, and she kind of does the same thing that I do with art, with drawings. And we both come from this place of like, what's our purpose? And then what are we going to bring to the world? So it's a bit of a different approach, but it actually makes it a whole lot easier when you have this guiding, direction. You're like, all right, well, I'm going that way. Don't know what I'm doing yet, but something will come out of it, rather than just being like, oh, I want to write a song. What should I write? Oh, look, I'll write about my ex-partner that ran away with my dog, and that'll be a great song. Like, I don't know, gives a little bit of a northern arrow, I suppose.
Well, it's unique. There's not this facet of different types of songs associated with growing or permaculture. So kind of one of a kind, which makes it unique. And you're teaching kids, you're teaching adults, you're teaching all of us, how to grow food and how to all be one, within a community.
Well, that was really like another central aim, is like, because there's a lot of artists who sing about, like political songs and protest songs and like, activist songs. And when I first heard, the idea came from a friend of mine, Katrina, who was doing the course with me at the time. And she actually suggested, like, why don't you write a song about permaculture on your ukulele? And my instant reaction was just to cringe, be like, oh God, like, who wants to hear a song about permaculture? No, thanks. Like, I was just picturing this kind of kumbaya, let's all hug a tree. And and then she didn't let me off the hook, thankfully, because she kind of forced me into it. And I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it good. And I'm going to write about solutions rather than like, these are the problems of the world and let's all just love each other and everything will be fine. It's like, no, what are the practical solutions? Like, what can we actually do? And so, yeah, trying to weave in those educational elements, I suppose you could call them, and positivity, rather than just like outlining the problems, because there's so much music and art out there showing us the problems, but what do we do about it? Like, what are the solutions, or what are the responses? Some of these problems don't have easy solutions, but which direction do we even start to go in? That's sort of been the challenge. And yeah, I often get the feedback now that, like, when people hear, we're a permaculture band and they come to see a gig, they're like, wow, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Like, thanks.
Oh, that's funny.
So you like kimchi, you like carrots. I don't know what other songs he's talking about, but what do you like growing?
Sweet potato.
Sweet potatoes. Sorry, I didn't do the whole catalog. I listened to a lot, but not the whole thing. What do you like growing there? Do you have perennial systems set up, fruit trees, that kind of stuff? Or are you just doing annuals and daikon radish to make tea?
No, we're growing a food forest at our place, and I'm actually at my friend's place at the moment on the East Coast. We're on tour at the moment, but behind me here is a hugelkultur. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a hugelkultur food forest orchard system here, which it's a beautiful system because they had a whole lot of logs and woody biomass from the trees. And originally the plan was to burn it, because that's usually what you do to get rid of tree stumps. But then we had a chat and we're like, oh, how about like lay them on contour and then cover them in topsoil, and they become slow release compost. And so that's what they've done here. They've dug swales on contour and buried the logs across the land, which, they get a lot of rain here, so it helps divert the water and infiltrate into those logs, and they're absolutely thriving. So it's great to come back and see the time lapse of this project right here. But at home we're doing a similar thing. We're landscaping at the moment, trying to build a straw bale house, and we're in a bit of a colder climate, but we have a nice microclimate. So we're trying to grow some tropicals like mangoes and black sapotes and things like that. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, you like those black sapotes?
Oh yeah, black sapote chocolate pudding. Have you tried it?
Yeah, I have it. Yep.
Oh, black sapote, cream, bit of honey, cacao. The best.
I agree. Gets a bad rap here in Florida, actually. A lot of people don't like it. I don't understand. So I love it.
Try it again.
Yeah, exactly. Try it again. That's awesome.
Charlie, I guess for me, another kind of layer, if you want to go there, would be kind of, what do you think? Because I know all of your songs to me are almost unabashedly creative, which I love, because it's like all bets are off from the stuff I've seen. And I think that's unique and admirable. It's like, we're just going to give it to you and you can run with it. It's like very creative in my mind. So I'm curious, kind of from that, what do you think the challenges are that you've seen, and what are those solutions? If you can kind of take at least a couple ideas maybe and just explain that. Because I think for me, if we're trying to make the largest impact possible in our communities, you know, what are those few things that you feel like are still out there that you want to cover? You know, what are your goals in that direction?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. Like I tend to just come across them as I go, and whatever sparks my interest and whatever makes me come alive, I still go by that, because, you know, I'm not a farmer. I'm not even really an experienced gardener. I thought when I was going to go study permaculture, I was going to come out, you know, being a master of compost and food production and growing and know everything about gardening. But what I came out with was this sense that the world is a holistic, largely self-organizing system, and that we all have our part to play. And for me, that part is music and education and entertainment. And so, you know, that for me, those are the solutions. For you, that might be something else. For somebody who's an accountant, you know, there's plenty of work to be done in the accounting world, trust me. But, you know, whatever fits your skill set and whatever makes you come alive is what I bring it back to. And so obviously we have a lot of ecological and environmental, you know, issues that need addressing, but they can be addressed from any and all angles, I would argue. I'd say there's no one size fits all solution. You know, there's this kind of approach that, you know, is always looking for a silver bullet, like what's the solution? And I would say there's no solution. There's just a response. We don't need a silver bullet. We need scattershot. You know, we need everyone on board doing their little bit. And we might not even know what that looks like until it happens. But as long as, you know, if we come from this ethical core, if we come from the earth care, people care, and fair share ethics, you know, those three things are pretty universal. They've been part of, you know, probably every traditional and indigenous culture in the world, including, you know, where my ancestors come from. You know, there's a lot of shared culture still in human societies, even though some of us have been quite removed for a long time. But I think coming back to that ethics and then that environmental and ecological literacy, permaculture, they say, is like a threefold thing. There's the ethics and principles, which is kind of like your guiding beliefs and you know, and assumptions. And then there's ecological literacy, which is understanding how the natural world works and understanding the systems behind it. There's a big component of systems thinking, which sounds big and scary, but it's really just seeing connections between things. So, and then when you see connections, you see the whole. You can see different perspectives, and you can move between perspectives and go, oh, well, just because this thing works here doesn't necessarily mean that it works here. Maybe I'll change that. And then the third part is design. So any way that you can design, whether that's with a pen and paper or, you know, with laying things out on the ground or just doing it in your head, coming up with a good design before running out and doing something is always a good idea, because, you know, again, we have a tendency to just have an idea and then act upon it and go and like, yes, this is a good idea. And then we move fast and break stuff, which is, of course, the guiding MO of, you know, Silicon Valley and a lot of the entrepreneurs of the world. And look how it's panned out. So, you know, I say move slow and fix stuff and just try those three things. Try getting that ethical, principled approach. The ecological literacy, go out and be in nature, go and observe and interact, and then design from that, from patterns to details. In permaculture, there's this principle, design from patterns to details. So try to see the full pattern and then go to the details. And that detail might come back to something that you already do, but it just changes it slightly. And it makes it a whole lot easier. You don't have to change your whole life. You don't have to completely pivot into a new direction or a new career or something you don't know anything about. You might just have to change one little part of your life or what you're doing, and that locks into place with your guiding goals, or, you know, the goals of a whole movement.
I love that. I love the way you put that together. Fantastic.
True. My life slowed when COVID hit. I'm a nurse, and so I feel like my life slowed so I could rediscover myself and rediscover permaculture and gardening and just coming back to zone zero. And so it's been a blessing for me to learn how to do all this again and try and teach my kids, you know, what this is about. And going out, you know, this morning, I'm hungry. Okay, well, let's go get an egg and carrots and a pepper, and here's your breakfast. You know, that's what I want for all the kids
Yeah.
to be able to have. And so I feel like that one little twist of, the pandemic twisted my life to slow and not have to do, 4 10s every day for the rest of my life. And so it's been the biggest blessing to be able to provide and teach and, have a community around me that I can help teach and learn. So it's been that little twist, like you said. So, and your music's inspiring. So I don't know, but I think you're probably going to have to play something for us if you have
Oh
a
man,
little
I'll have to get my ukulele. Hang on. So this is a handmade ukulele made out of Australian timbers. It's got a bit of a tinfoil hat right now because it's got an electrical problem.
That's all right. I get that.
That's cool.
And well, there we go. Well, I can give you the autobiography if you like. So the first song I ever wrote about permaculture, and actually, well, one of the first songs I ever wrote, full stop, was one called "No Such Thing as Waste," which came out about 12 years ago now, and we re-released it a couple of years ago on our Garbage Guts album. But it's a true story about growing up in a mud brick shack with gardens and chickens and a composting toilet, and it's based on the permaculture principle to produce no waste. When I was a little kid, I liked to catch the rain, while my friends around the town let it flow right down the drain. But our tiny house in the trees had one thing that we drank, every drop that we had saved in our rainwater tank. But there's no such thing as waste, only stuff in the wrong place. No, there's no such thing as waste when you treasure every trace. Well, I moved to the city, rented a house on my way to buy a bed, but I saw one lying on the side of the road, so I took that one instead. And I also found a fridge, a couch, and a big old sewing machine, and the biggest pile of thrown out stuff that I had ever seen. But there's no such thing as waste. Whoa, no, only stuff in the wrong place. Yeah, I said there's no such thing as waste. Better save it just in case. We gotta refuse, reduce, reuse, repair, then renew. Yeah, I said refuse, reduce, reuse, repair, then renew. Well, you can get cool things out of the bin. You can compost every crumb. Save all the seeds, eat garden weeds, and give the rest back to your mum. It's time we thunk about all our junk to keep our planet clean. Cause that W word is so absurd in the world of blue and green. Cause there's no such thing as waste. Whoa, no. Only stuff in the wrong place. I said there's no such thing as waste. Only opportunity to be. Oh, thank you.
Love it.
Nice. Thank you. I believe it. There's no such thing as waste. Yeah.
That was the song that my housemate Katrina forced me to write on threat of not getting dinner that fateful day before the permaculture course. And I'm eternally grateful.
Wow.
I love
That
it.
must have been a hit even then before dinner.
Well, the class, I played it and I was like, oh my God, this is the most embarrassing moment of my life. I'd never performed an original song before. And I thought this is just going to be the nerdiest thing anyone's ever heard. And the class was like, more, play it again.
Yeah, yeah.
Really? What's wrong with you people? And then it took me a few goes to get comfortable with it. But there you go.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Where can people find you so they can connect? YouTube,
Well, we're at
any
Formidable.
other?
Yeah, we're on YouTube as Grow Do It, or if you search Formidable Vegetable, our website's formidablevegetable.com. So we've got all the stuff there. And yeah, Grow Do It is another business I run with my partner, Brenna, and there's a lot of her artwork on there. And we teach permaculture courses and workshops and things and do stuff at festivals. So yeah, hopefully, one day we'll make it back to the States. But for now, we're very much Australian based and putting music out to the world. So we're on all of the streaming apps and everything as well. So you can check out Formidable Vegetable. And yeah, we're also on Patreon. If you happen to be an abundant billionaire, check us out on Patreon. Grow, do it. It helps keep us going.
Yeah, thanks so much for what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. Really appreciate you being on the show today. And yeah, maybe you can work in Grow Your Grass Off maybe in a future album. Who knows?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll see what I can do.
Awesome.
That'd be cool. We would love it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Have a
Take
good day.
care.